Ryan, we've finally made this happen. We've been back and forth messaging for months now,
Yeah.
trying to make this conversation happen. Today was even a little bit of a mission, but
Mm.
you're here, you've
Hmm.
made it, and I'm super grateful for you, bro.
Oh, I'm so honored, man. I'm so honored. It was meant to happen at this time, obviously.
Yes, I was actually recording a video before for my business,
Mm.
and it's a podcast media business, and I said, you know, as a podcaster, you reach out to a lot of people to come on, and at certain times, someone's going to say, "Oh no, I'm not busy right now," but you got to continue to follow up, and when it happens, it's meant to happen. And today is one of those days, and I'm very excited for what we're going to dive into. I don't know what direction this is going to go. It could go in many different directions, but I feel where I want to start is at the beginning, and not so much going through chronological order of your journey, but more so through our upbringing. There's a lot of pivotal moments, and a lot of that stems from the people within our life, usually our parents, our siblings, close family members and friends, whether that's good or bad. But for you, what are some of those pivotal moments that you feel really shaped the man that sits in front of us today?
Yeah, amazing question. And yeah, thanks for being here, Nick. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be on the show. So I think for me, some of the big catalyst changes was being in London, living in London, and the area that I lived in. It was pretty rough. Like Edmonton, North London, Tottenham area is not the nicest. People don't go there unless you really need to. And I think that really started to shape a little bit about who I was as an individual and how I saw and viewed the world, that the world was a little bit dangerous. And there was a little bit more of a constant nervous system activation for me at all times. It was a place where if you walked round the corner, you could get mugged. And I got mugged at a really young age, about 13 or 14 or something like that. And ever since then, I was like always constantly hyper vigilant of everywhere that I was. And then that was when I started the creation of like the Ryan, the old Ryan that you would see. And that was where I would start, going to boxing or start going to some form of martial art training and start trying to make myself appear intimidating in order to push people away from me so I would feel safer. But really, I was just that boy on the inside feeling a little bit more scared and vulnerable, but just created an outer shell to push people away.
Talk to me about that little boy. Why was he so scared?
Yeah, that little boy was worried about what would happen to him and how he would be viewed and his safety, because everywhere you would go, there would be some form of danger, really, in the sense of, drug addiction or violence or crime or knife crime or gun crime or anything like that. And I grew up in an era where you just sort of went out of the house and your parents just said, come home when it's dark. So there was none.
The good days.
The good days, yeah, I guess. And there was no phones. I didn't have a phone. I'd have to go to a payphone if I wanted to have 20p on me to go and call my mum or something if I needed to get home. And if no one was in, no one was in. So that was it. So you're just constantly in a state of just doing what you want around like these rough little areas, getting into mischief. And then before you know it, you start to turn into a teenager, and then you turn into you end up in these groups of other sort of, I guess, lost boys, the lost boy theory. And it's you sort of congregate together, and then you end up with other peer groups and gangs of other lost boys. And then that's where it starts to roll on.
And I'm curious, how did you find yourself becoming a part of that group of those lost boys? Like, what was home life like? What role did your parents play in your upbringing?
Yeah, I mean, it was me and my mum and my dad, and I felt a lot of the time quite alone. Even though my mum was really attentive and always there, my dad was always busy and always working, and if he wasn't, he'd be at the pub or just be chilling at home, but he wasn't never necessarily emotionally there. And my mum was, busy working and come home and dealing with her own troubles and issues in life. So I felt a lot of the time that I was always alone. So when I would go out and find other people that maybe also felt that way, I would gravitate towards them. And then we would just be in those cliques for long periods of time. And then before you know it, I wanted more validation of that group. So I would do things and get involved in things, crimes, small crimes, those type of stuff, in order to be more seen and accepted by that group. Because that was my survival, because I didn't have the connection I probably needed at that age, at a young age. I found it within the gangs that I was in.
Yeah, I can relate to, because my dad's never really been emotionally available as well. How has that been for you now, being 37? Like, do you have a relationship with him now?
Yeah, I mean, no. I wouldn't say I have a relationship with him now. It's very superficial.
Yeah.
Yes, how you doing? What's going on? How's work? That type of stuff. And I think a lot of men in this world can really relate to that, because it's a different generation of man. I think the generation of man is changing now. I think we're going to have a lot more conscious parents, a lot more dads that are more grounded in their presence in the world and in our life. But I think with my dad, he was just, they grew in that generation of just not dealing with any of their emotions. So I personally believe, I'd never spoke to my dad about this, but I personally believe my dad struggled with depression his whole life. This internal holding and pushing down of all of his emotions and not being able to deal with things. So even though we talk now, and I try to build that relationship and try to create more of a unsuperficial relationship, it's still, still challenging, still difficult. The beauty of not having the emotionally connected father that I would have maybe necessarily needed was that I then gravitated towards other men. I got to pick my fathers in life. I got to pick elders in life as I go through, and I still have those elders and those mentors in my life now that play that father role. From a tribal perspective, when we're growing up we would grow up in hunter-gatherer tribes. We would have multiple men around us, uncles and different family members, and be able to show us the way and show us, maybe when you're hunting, don't go down that way, go down this way, show us this way, show us that way. We don't have that in our society now. So now I'm able to pick and choose and gravitate towards different men. And
who are some of those men and some of the pivotal, I guess, lessons that they've instilled into you?
Yeah, good question, man. I find that there's a huge list of men that I probably wouldn't even be able to name them all now. And even some men that don't even know that they're making such an impact in my life, like people just around on social media that I find that I can find value from and listen to and learn from. And that was the biggest part for me, was being able to step into vulnerability. That yes, I did need to look outside of my family system to find what I was really looking for.
And coming back to your dad, because as I mentioned before with myself, I've never had a strong relationship with my father, and we're both like-minded individuals. We're conscious, we're on this healing journey, right? And through us doing the work, there's obviously a part of us that wants to heal our parents. How have you gone about that? Has there been a feeling or a thought for you to like, oh, I'm doing all this work, you can do this too, and try and heal your own dad?
Yeah, for sure. Why wouldn't we be? I mean, I think that's where you come into the sense of being a wounded healer in this world. Where if you end up in the coaching space, you can get very stuck in trying to constantly heal the other person, but really you're trying to heal the relationship with your parents a lot of the time, not always. And I was stuck in that for a long time, constantly feeling like I needed to find that connection and trying to gravitate and go, I can help you, I can do this for you. This is because then when you get to that place of healing, you're going to be able to meet my needs the way that I needed, that I didn't have then. So when I heal you, Dad, you're going to be able to love me the way that I want you to.
So what piece of advice would you give to someone like myself that's in that mindset of, I guess, wanting to heal their own father? Because I know a lot of people listening to this right now are on that healing journey, and there's going to be loved ones within our lives that we want to try and help, but we can only do so much. And the saying of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. What's your piece of advice to them?
I think I can only give the advice to myself here, but it would be to just step out of that and just trust it's their experience. And that everything that I experienced from my mum, my dad, and the people around me was what created the man that I did today. It's what created the edge for me. It's what created everything in my journey. if I had a wound of not feeling good enough or not being seen or not being heard, those wounds is what created the man that strived for more and more discipline. So when I was really young, I joined the Royal Marines at a really young age because I wanted the approval of my parents or my dad to go, I'm proud of you. So that was what drove me deep in my subconscious to get to this place. Like when I get this much money, this high achiever wound, it's like when I get here, then it's, you know, it's what got me there. Like when I get here, then I'm going to get the love. But guess what? Those goalposts always move. That high achiever, you never, like, it's never there. So I'm grateful for having that wound. But also we have to come back to, yeah, it's never going to change. It's never going to change. It's never going to change the root of what's going on underneath.
Yeah. So in a way, it's accepting and letting go to a degree.
Yeah.
Because I'm very grateful for my upbringing and the relationship that I didn't have with my dad, because now being a father myself, I know how I don't want to be. And for my daughter, I'm conscious and I'm there for her. And it's a totally different relationship to what I had with my own parents. And I wouldn't be this way as a father if I didn't go through that. So yes, I'm forever grateful. And I used to have so much resent and anger towards my dad. But it wasn't until a couple of years back where I really started to do this healing and this inner work and understanding that they're on their own journey and they only know what they know. It's a different generation. And if you continue to live your life trying to make them proud at the how can I say this? At the loss of your own happiness, because you're trying to make them happy, but you're not being happy within yourself. It's a never-ending cycle that you're not going to get out of. And so many people are trapped in that.
And then we do it in our relationships.
Mm.
You know, it comes back into our relationships. We're trying to then heal that wound within our partners because they're always there being mirrored back to us, our partners. If you don't heal that relationship, or you don't have to necessarily heal your parents. You're not trying to heal your parents. You're trying to heal the wounded child that's inside of you. More so, you're trying to be there for them. You're trying to reparent yourself and be the father that you needed from internally in yourself.
How did you reparent yourself?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think it was being able to more connect in with my body and be with myself, to be able to talk to myself in a whole new way. So I'll listen to the things that I'm telling myself and the stories that I'm telling myself, and then being able to speak to that in a little bit more of a compassionate way, which is still a journey and still a practice, you know, day to day. But it's going internal and being able to speak to that little boy or that little girl.
Is it as easy as saying going internal? Because, you know, a lot of spiritual people, a lot of people that say, oh, go do the inner work. But we live in a world now where it's all external. There's so much noise out there. How do we do that inner work?
It's a really good question. It's something I talk to quite a bit, because when we've had trauma and big T, little t, let's just say an event that was really challenging or brought you out of shock and that blindsided you. Let's just use that as a terminology rather than trauma. But when we've had anything like that, we disassociate from our bodies, we go up into our head. And then when we do that, we can't connect in with our bodies. So if there's someone like me saying, oh, connect in with your body, but you don't even know how to do that. When I feel my body, I can't even feel it. It's completely numb. I don't feel any sensations. I'm up here all day long. Then there's chronic stress activation going on in the body that needs to be released first. So that could be done with things like TRE, trauma release exercises, where the body starts to involuntarily shake itself in order to release some of that chronic stress activation that's in the body. The next steps you can start to do is to start doing other types of forms of safety where the body can feel safe, so it can disperse some of the adrenaline and cortisol that's being pumped into it from the disassociation. So we want to try to connect in and titrate into the body slowly. Because this is when people have these ayahuasca ceremonies and these plant medicines, they go straight into the body and they go straight into the ether. And they've never experienced being in the body. It can bring so much up for them, like a Pandora's box. So sometimes the titration that we're looking for of slowly getting into the body is really important.
What's your views on cold therapy?
Cold
Because I know you have a bit of mixed emotions on that, and it's the big
Yeah.
thing at the moment, right? Everyone,
Yeah.
go have a cold shower, do an ice bath. What's your take on it when it comes to, I guess, stress relief and trauma release?
My question would be why? If you're already stressed and you're chronically overwhelmed and you are dealing with maybe chronic symptoms or, you know, extreme stress in your day-to-day life and overwhelm, then you're adding in an extra bundle of cortisol and adrenaline into your body is not going to be much sense to you and make much of a good impact, let's just say. Now, for people that are resilient, have good ways to handle their stress, it can be beneficial for them. But adding it to an already stressed bucket is just going to overfill and overspill everything. So you see it time and time again. I work with people that have been doing the cold baths, doing extreme sympathetic stimulating breathwork sessions, and all of these really intense therapies because it's supposed to help them, but they become more disassociated and more stressed by doing these things.
Yeah, okay. So you get the short-term benefit of actually going in the ice bath, but the long-term it actually doesn't do benefit?
Well, because if we're talking nervous system states and we're going sympathetic responses, like fight, flight is sympathetic, we're in that stress activation, then we don't want to add more stress activation to an already stressed nervous system. If we're in a freeze response and we are shut down and we're numbing and our bodies are constantly like holding themselves rigid and tensing, lock jaw, tight neck, extreme tightness in the body, this is where we need, this is a parasympathetic dominance in the body, but we're actually needing more sympathetic in that in that time when we're in a freeze. So maybe more exercise or movement or cold therapy could help you to get into that sympathetic activity. So it has its places, but not for every person. We are so like individual. You know, everyone's talking about fasting and doing all of these cleanses and juice fasting, but you know, for a woman, that's not necessarily good. That can be damaging for them. So for a man, maybe it's good for that man based on their constitution and their ability to deal with stress and regulate their nervous system.
I'm curious, what's your protocol, like your mental health protocol? Do you cold plunge? No.
Used to,
Okay.
long time ago. And I was like, my body just hates this. Like, what am I doing? And it's like, you got to just push through it. But I was trying to build a relationship with my body again, not trying to ignore my body. That's what I'd done for many years, was trying to get away from my body. So as soon as I'd step in a cold bath, I was like, I just do not like this at all. And as I was delving into more of the research around nervous system states and what that's actually going on from the body, I was just like, this just doesn't make sense to me for people that are already extremely stressed or dealing with chronic symptoms or chronic fatigue or mold exposure or these other issues where the body is in that state of fight or flight. We just don't need more of that activation. Yeah.
So what is your current protocol now?
Yeah, good. I just try to let me just try and get my words out there. I try to focus on not having an extreme amount of routines to do for my day. Sometimes I call it like a baggy routine. So some days I'll wake up, I'll lay out in the sun, I'll do my lymph massage, I'll do some qigong, I'll do some nervous system sort of work in regards to breathing or shaking and just moving my body. And then some days I'll just wake up and meditate and just sit in stillness for a period of time. There's no set routine that I'll have. It will just be, that's what I'll do for the morning based on how I'm feeling. My evening routine is a little bit more structured in the sense that I'll, start to dim the lights down, use candles, dim the lights in regards to like putting on red lights, blue blocking glasses, start bringing in the melatonin production. And then I will start calming down the nervous system that way, because I think sleep is the most important part of my day, more so than my morning.
Do you feel over structuring your day actually has a negative impact?
Yeah, it's trying to tick the boxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like trying to, I've done this, I've done that, I've done the next thing. And there's so many influencers on social media that you'll see is like, I'm doing 20 different things. It'll take you 45 minutes. If you've got a 2-year-old,
I don't have that.
how are you going to have that? So pick the one thing that will be good for you. Maybe before the child wakes up, it will be just giving yourself a quick little body scan in bed. It might just be like doing 10 breaths. It might just be the smallest thing. It could be in the shower and you do your lymphatic massage. Picking a couple of those things that you can bring in together into your day that make you feel grounded, and you can be more aware throughout your day, rather than trying to tick off all of these things from a frantic nervous system sympathetic response again. That's what I did. I lived my life that way.
Yeah, I got caught up in that as well, where I had this big morning routine, meditation, cold shower, write down my gratitude, and just ticking the boxes. And then if I didn't get one of them, it just ruined my whole day. Because, win the morning, win the day. But you just got to go with the flow and understand every day is going to be different, especially myself being a father and having a 2-year-old. There's a lot of spanners thrown in the work. Like, my daughter was up at 2 a.m. this morning and we slept into like 8. Usually we're up at 6:37. It's like, today's a different day. You just got to take it. And before you came, I was just out in the sun, just massaging my body and just soaking it all up. I was like, okay, cool. This is my day today. Don't get so caught up in ticking all the boxes, because it is detrimental, I believe.
Completely. I mean, I feel you. And look, how many people out there now just don't do any of it because it's just too overwhelming and too much. It's just pick a thing that feels right to you. Go with the flow, as you say. That's a lot more of a more gentle way to go into your day, rather than stressing about ticking the boxes.
You mentioned before that you didn't have a good relationship with your body. Now, you're a big dude, you're full of tats. And I know that you built this persona, this body, as a way, like a protective mechanism, right? To kind of scare off people because you were that hurt little boy inside. Take me back to that version of you, and what was the pivotal moment that made you realize, fuck, I need to make a change in my life here. Like, I'm not happy. I know there's so much more to life. There's so much more to me. I need to make a change.
I just done something on this the 2 days ago, so it's interesting that this has come up again. It wasn't one catalyst thing, but it was a mixture of things. I was at a time in my life where I was involved in a lot of crime and incidences and chaos that I was bringing into my life. And I was looking at getting sent down to prison for 8 years. And I was like, right, yeah, that scared the shit out of me. I was like, I'm not going to prison for 8 years. That's just not happening in my life. And I came out of that courtroom with a no plea. No, so meaning I just got out and it was okay. It was all good. It was like not necessarily not guilty, just no plea. And I was like, okay, this is the kick from the universe that I need to change things in my life. And that was when I moved away from where I was living and started to change the people that were around me. Then a couple of years after that, my mum got cancer and I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to deal emotionally with that. I used to use drugs to regulate myself, or the chaos would be such a distraction for me that I wouldn't feel anything anyway in the first place. I was addicted to the adrenaline, in a sense. So when my mum got cancer, it brought everything up to a head, all of this anxiety, all of this panic. And it was a really difficult time in my life because I was so close to my mum. But during that time when my mum was ill, this might sound silly for some people, but I had a dog, Jackson, that I had for 10 years, and I was so close to this dog. And he died in some kennels when I didn't have a place to live at the time. So I was currently just homeless for a period of time. I put him in kennels till I found a place to live, and I was about to go and pick him up, and then he died in the kennels. So I was a field of extreme guilt. I should have been with him. He shouldn't have died in the kennels. Died because he was 10 years old and he was a big dog. So that was what happened. But then when all these things trickled in together, they just built up and built up and built up. There's probably about 10 other things that happened, and it just came to a head, and it just went pop. And I was having so much anxiety, insomnia, complete disassociation, wasn't able to sit still at all. And I've never experienced anything like that before. So something had to change. And I was sitting in a car park, just bawling my eyes out, crying, just like, I just can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to be here. I don't want to live anymore. So sitting in that car park crying, I was speaking to my mum on the phone, And by me sharing that I just didn't want to be here anymore and didn't want to live anymore, she shared with me her own mental health challenges, her own stuff that she actually went through, that she also felt like that when she was younger. And through that, having that, just that sense of validation that I'm not the only person to feel like that, and my mum also felt like that, was like, okay, well, my mum's still here and I can get through this. And I was going to go on some antidepressants. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this natural route first and do all of these things. Or I'm going to go down the antidepressant route, or I'm just going to not live anymore. They're my choices that I make. Which one am I going to go down? So I went full into natural way of dealing with things. Started to learn about the connection between the gut and the brain, and how much damage I'd done to my gut over the years of antibiotics and drug use and terrible food, and having no idea about any of that, and the connection there between the brain and mental health. So I started to work on that and started to change my diet, started to have in supplements, and started to go down the whole detoxing and prolonged fasting route, and then the biohacking of sleeping and blue blocking glasses, and all this stuff creeped in over many, many years. And I started to feel a little bit more grounded and stable. My mum got better. But my mum got better not from all of the chemo and the radiation. My mum got better because my mum had extreme guilt in her life from her past. And once she was able to move that guilt from her and release that guilt, she started to get better. And then that really took me down another avenue of like, oh, actually, maybe this stuff is more emotional based than I believed it was. And it gave me a lot of inklings and seeds that there's more to this than just this physical, all these supplements and this dietary stuff I'm doing, that there's an emotional concept that is triggering these things within our cells and causing some of these chronic symptoms. And this is when I then started to study, psychotherapy and nervous system work, and then German new medicine. And then this is where I combine it all in together now. But I'm moving away from the physical side of things more into the emotional side of stuff. I don't know if that answered your question there, but I went over a bit of a tangent.
It did. And what I take from that, and I've said this plenty of times, is like coming back to the beginning of that little story there around you opening up to your mum about your own struggles, and then her saying, oh yeah, I've been struggling as well, is the power of vulnerability. And I say it time and time again, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. By you opening up, it allowed your mum to resonate and feel safe, and her opening up about her struggles as well. And I'm assuming not only that moment pushed you towards seeking help, but I feel like it pushed her in seeking help as well, because she knows, oh, I'm not alone in this journey. My son's going through the same thing. So I'm going to go get the help that I need. So it just comes back to vulnerability is so powerful, and especially as men, and it's not weak anymore to open up about our feelings. We all go through shit. So why can't we speak about it? Because just by having one pivotal conversation like that, 2 lives have changed. Imagine if we continue to have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that me too, isn't it? It's that me too shame. If we share a shame, it's like, oh, me too. The shame just dissolves.
Yeah.
Because I get that. I get like that all the time. So, and then that's how I try and communicate with my brothers in the world, or my friends, or my close ones around me. It's like, I can see myself in you. I get that. I get why you feel that way. And then you're right. It's the power of vulnerability, the power of like actually being there, showing yourself. But it's difficult for people.
It is, especially the older generation, our parents' generation. As you said, well, both our dads are not really emotionally available. So for them to open up, I've never seen my dad cry. The only emotions that I see is anger from him.
Yeah.
So I would love to get to a point where we can be vulnerable and I can see him open up. But coming back to the beginning of our conversation, is we got to go on our own path, and they're on their own journey as well. So,
and it's that emotion. You just said that I've never seen my dad cry. I've only seen him be angry. And this is where we come into, I guess, what I do for work in somatic inquiry, is that there's like 3 types of emotional repression. There's emotional repression of everything. I don't feel anything. I don't want to feel any emotion. And then there's hurt repression. and there's anger repression. I would be classed as a hurt repressor. So hurt repressors are whenever they are hurt, they will express their hurt with anger because they feel hurt and they can't express the hurt. The hurt is too much for them. And then you've got anger repressors. Anger repressors show their anger with tears. And most of the time we are in relationships with the opposites of what we are. So if, for example, I am a hurt repressor, my partner will inherently be an anger repressor because I am attracted to the emotional resonance of what she can easily express that I can't. So have I made sense there? Sometimes I lose people with that bit.
No, because I'm thinking about my parents' relationship now.
So would you say your mum was more of a hurt repressor or an anger repressor?
Hurt. And dad's anger.
So your dad was hurt and your mum was anger. So your mum would repress anger and show sadness and hurt and tears, and your dad was a hurt repressor who showed outwardly anger when he was hurt.
Yeah, I'd say that would sum it up. Yeah.
So what are you?
Ooh. I've always had a bad relationship with anger. I guess from seeing my dad always be angry, I seen anger as like a bad emotion. Like, I can't be angry. I'd suppress it all inside, and I guess I'd be angry but internalize it.
And that comes through as skin issues. That comes through as gut issues.
I had very bad acne as a teenager.
It's the anger coming through. Comes through the skin, right? Same as gut. It's coming through like gut issues. It's holding all that anger and that tension in the body. Eczema, skin issues. I see it every day.
Yeah.
Once we're able to then release that emotion, that's when we can start to find freedom. But that is the road in itself. Out of curiosity, is your partner an anger hurt? How would she line up there?
Ooh. I'd say anger.
She represses anger like yourself.
Oh, she expresses anger.
So she would be a hurt repressor. You'd be the anger repressor. She'd be the hurt repressor.
Okay, yeah.
So you're attracted to the fact that she can express her anger freely. You probably like that on a subconscious level. You're not consciously on a date and going,
I'm like, fucking hate it.
Oh, of course, because you probably because you experienced that with your dad. But this is why there is no nothing's by accident. It's meant to. It happens that way. You experienced that when you was a child. It's like, I saw my dad express anger. I'm not going to express anger. It's not good for me to express that. So then you end up going into the world attracting people in that sense.
Why do we attract the opposite when in our heads we don't like it?
Yeah, we do the same with nervous system states. Have you heard of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn?
Yeah.
So with fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, for example, if you're a fight type, you're always going to be in a relationship with a fawn. Fawns are no boundaries, struggle with making decisions for themselves. They are the appeasers. They're like, oh yeah, sorry. They say sorry a lot. And when you see a dog and another dog in the park, and the big dog goes over to the little dog, and the little dog rolls over on its back legs, that's a fawn response. It's too much for me, I'm just going to fawn it. Okay, so a fawn will always be attracted to a relationship with a fight. You'll never see a fight with another fight because it's two deer antlers, two stags butting heads. Because we're attracted to the nervous system states all the time. Most of the time, that's how it happens. Don't get me wrong, you've probably had relationships with other types, but they've not lasted. So if I was with other hurt repressors, for example, if I was with other hurt repressors, I would be really passionate at the very beginning and then it would fizzle. Or if I was with other if I was with an anger repressor, I'd be more attracted to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why we do this though. Like,
yes,
because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we're trying to heal the wound from childhood. We're subconsciously trying to heal that old wound from when we was younger. Because if you were a fawn in your household and your parent was a fight response, one of your parents was a fight. Now, this is what psychology would call narcissism, some form of narcissism in some way. Now, that's a very big spectrum, so we have to be careful with that word. People use it very freely without understanding the word. So if you had a fight response in your family household, which most of us normally do, then that means that if we're a fawn, we are going to attract another fight response because we're trying to heal that old wound from our childhood.
Fuck, you're opening up so much for me now. So I'm really thinking about it. Like, I would say my dad was fight, mum was freeze, and I was Fawn, because I've always struggled with decision making and confidence and anxiety and everything like that. And then I look at my partner now, and she's fight.
Of course. No accident.
Yeah. Can we evolve from that, or?
Of course, that's why you're in that relationship.
Okay.
You're in that relationship to heal this.
So
and same for her.
So we attract the opposite to then become that yin yang, like healing. Okay.
That's what it's all part of, is polarity, where they're in order. It's the mirrors. Our relationships are our mirrors. They're a container for deep healing, or they are lots and lots of triggers. But the triggers, if you're in a relationship with lots of triggers, there's so much healing there for you. If they trigger the shit out of you.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And look, when I'm sharing this, I'm doing this with a big wide brush.
Yeah.
There's nuances, and there's very different, like not everyone's, it's not an exact of how that works, but it's just very common. I see it on a daily basis when I'm working with people. And that's where we can start to grasp, okay, well, if this was your family system, this is your attachments, this is what your relationships are like, then, okay, this is what you're probably emotionally repressing. If you're repressing the anger, we need to be able to start to freely get into the body to express that. And then that's when it changes. But when you start to express your anger, your partner who also expresses anger is going to have to learn to express her sadness and her hurt rather than just go straight to anger, because it's easy to do.
So let's use that as an example. How do we make this like a healthy polarity? And for myself, learn how to express anger in a healthy manner, and her to learn how to, heal in a healthy manner as well.
Yeah. It's difficult.
I know we're on a podcast and it's hard to do this deep work, but put a brush over it.
Sure.
How can we?
Yeah. Well, how would I tend to look at that is we can only focus on the work on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we can only focus on that. If we understanding that, okay, well, every time that I feel angry, I go inwards and I grip on the inside, and I'm motherfucker, and I'm like in that on the inside, but then I'm crying or feel like I need to shed tears, or I'm really upset outwardly, but I'm angry on the inside. We need to be able to start to connect into the body, and how we do that is, firstly, like we said at the beginning, if you've not been able to connect with your body, we're going to need to start to do exercises or movements or bodily practices to get you connected slowly to your body. And then we would start to do certain exploring and inquiries into that. So for example, if I said to you, this is maybe a practice that some of your listeners could try, is closing down your eyes for a moment and bringing into your mind's eye something or someone that has triggered you, that has made you angry. Now, if that's a bit intense for you, you can put them in a room. Put them in a room with a door and with a window. And you are on the outside looking into this room. You can see the thing or the person that has triggered you and made you angry. Get them to do the thing that triggers you. Get them to do the thing that makes you angry. Then I would say to yourself, it's okay for me to feel angry here. If you are a hurt repressor or an anger repressor, and you're saying, it's okay for me to feel the anger here, you're going to get some form of a retraction or constriction in your body. This is where the anger repression is. This is where we can start to communicate with it. So for example, if you bring it into your mind's eye there something, and in that room, have you got something there?
Yeah.
And I want you now to just say to yourself, you can say it out loud or internally, it's okay for me to feel this anger.
It's okay for me to feel this anger.
And just wait patiently and see what your body does. Are there any sensations? Are there any tightness?
It's just like a release.
Yeah. And where did you feel that release?
In my heart.
In your heart, in your chest.
Mm.
So this would be the first inquiry into where this repression would be in your eyes, in your sensations in your body. Mm. This is where we can then start to explore where that repression is. This is where those core beliefs of I'm not allowed to express my anger, I am not good enough, I am furious, in that all these core beliefs are stuck in those sensations in that body. This is where we can then start to communicate with it. We can start to speak with it, allow it to share what it wants to say. Like, I can't express this. This is too much for me. Then we would then go in deeper into the repression. And this is where it can then start getting all big and juicy. But once we start to release and move that through our body, through our somatic body, then we are able to then find freedom from the suffering. And you will more express anger in your day-to-day life, which hopefully in a good way.
Yeah. So it's building a relationship with yourself, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And your body and the sensations that they're giving you, because we ignore them because we're all trying to be busy and do.
Yeah.
You know?
That's powerful. I feel just relaxed now. We speak into healing, and it's a term thrown around a lot. Everyone needs to heal. Are we all broken?
I don't think we need to heal. I think we are not broken. I think everything is doing exactly what it needs to be doing at the time. I like the word expansion more than I do healing. But I use the term healing a lot in my social media because people maybe I'm talking about expansion. People may not understand exactly what I'm trying to share in that moment. So if we use the term healing with expansion, that would probably be more right to what I'm looking for here. But for us to be broken, that means we're trying to constantly fix. And then we go down a really slippery path of trauma hunting, shadow hunting, that there's always something that we're trying to fix within ourselves. I always say that symptoms are not a sign of disease, they're a sign of healing. It means that healing has taken place. You want to celebrate your symptoms that you're experiencing. If you're experiencing gut issues or you're experiencing diarrhea, it means that you are going through and finishing something in German New Medicine we call a conflict. And you're resolving a conflict. It means that when you're feeling the symptom, it means that it's taken place and it's the good point of it. Symptom is that the sign that your body's working with you rather than against you. So it's the same when it comes to healing or trying to constantly fix yourself. It means that we think that there's something outside of us that we know in order to bring us in healing and to fix us when we're not broken inherently.
Do we, when it comes to trauma, we've spoken about get the gut-mind connection and gut health, and then working on our emotions as well. Do we start with the gut? Do we start with emotions, or both? We start with both.
Yeah, it depends on the individual. Depends on if you are more easily to go down the route of physical with people first. So when I'm working with someone, it might be that that person feels more safety in looking at their diet, in their routines, in their protocols, in getting stool testing, blood testing done. They might feel more comfortable going down that route first. That builds more safety in the system maybe for them. They might get a few of the foundations. They might get some minerals and get some toxicity that's maybe a bit overburdened in their body out. And then go into the emotional, where some people go straight to the emotional and never do any of the physical work. Then you've got some people that with chronic symptoms or chronic conditions that aren't going away, then that means that they might even struggle with emotional eating. So we can't do the physical and do any dietary changes because they're emotionally eating consistently, and which is making their chronic symptoms maybe worse. So we need to look at the emotional concept. So you might have to interweave back and forth. So for the people out there, like, well, where do I start? What do I do then? Do I do the gut stuff first? Do I do the emotional stuff first? I'd go where you feel pulled to the most. If you feel pulled to the gut and going down that first, go down that, or the detoxification, or working on that. But then if you want to, and you're feeling the pull, I'd probably go down the emotional route. I always tend to go there first.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of the gut, like, it is complex, and everyone's gut and body build-up is different. But is there a simple protocol that someone could take to just help with their gut health?
I don't think there's a simple one-set protocol for anyone. It's like we've got all these things about carnivore. What's the best diet? Carnivore, plant-based, keto, paleo. like all of these different diets, but these all depends on how your body functions.
Yeah.
I'm also going to say where your emotions are suppressed and what organs are causing you the ability to break down those foods anyway. So let's say, for example, you know, carnivore. I'll have carnivore. It's super popular right now. If I just have carnivore, that may only be good for you if your stomach acid is really functioning in order to break down the protein, to utilize the minerals from the meat. But then that would tell me that there's liver issues going on if you can't break down the protein from that carnivore diet. And if there's liver issues, there's probably anger repression. Anger sits in the liver. So we're going to want to look at the anger repression in the liver as well as those changes. So it gives you a great insight there. But plant-based might not be good if you have fungal overgrowth or SIBO or some bacterial overgrowth. So it really, and that depends on how your body is able to like utilize and move some of those nutrients around. It really is so dependent. So depending on like which protocol is right for someone.
Would you start with getting like a stool testing to figure that all out?
It can give you some insights.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. It can definitely give you some insights. I get a stool test done with people,
Yep.
but it might not give you the full picture. So I might get bloods and stool tests done, maybe some oats testing, and you'll get like a nice snapshot of someone's physical health if they're wanting to go down that physical health path first anyway. And this might give them an idea of like, hey, I've got a few deficiencies here. This isn't working as well. Got this hormonal imbalance going on. Maybe I'm consuming too many plastics in my day-to-day living and wearing clothes that maybe aren't helpful for my body. And then we'd go down into the emotional route.
Yeah, okay. You've mentioned that you struggled a bit with anxiety, and anxiety, depression is big keywords that everyone has it these days, apparently. What happened to just being nervous?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And in IFS, in internal family systems, it's a form of therapy that I work with. We don't say I'm anxious or I'm nervous. We say that there's a part of me that's anxious or a part of me that's nervous, right? This gives us the distance that this isn't us inherently. It's just a part of us that is doing that and saying that and giving off these sensations. So we have a little bit of distance from it. And this is where we can start to then talk to the anxious part or the nervous part or the angry part to be able to ask what it actually wants. The great concept of that is the film Inside Out. Have you seen the film Inside Out?
Oh, that's the kids one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched that the other day. Yeah.
If you watch Inside Out, that is pretty much parts. So that's parts work. That's that we have all these inherently, these little characters with their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own perceptions of the world, and their own nervous systems even, that can sometimes hijack our system and take over how we're feeling. But inherently behind all of that, there is self. And self is calm and more conscious and more able to, it's in a more of a regulated state. So we're able to then communicate with these little parts. Inside Out 2 is also like another version. I'm not promoting Walt Disney stuff here, but I'm just saying it's a really good way of looking into that work. And that's extremely powerful. I recommend everyone look into their parts. Great book there is No Bad Parts by Dr. Schwartz.
So it's about building a relationship with each of those parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're always trying to communicate. So I would be classed as, so we have something called firefighters in IFS. And firefighters are when something is just a little bit too emotionally hard for us, the fire brigade comes in and hoses down everything. So, for example, if you had a fire in here, would the fire brigade come in? They're not going to just put water in can on it, they're going to just blast it, right? And this is addictions. This is where addictions or drug use or gambling or porn use or alcohol would come. That's the firefighter for you. So, for example, for me, mine was drugs, alcohol, and even addiction to adrenaline and chaos. So I was addicted to that. That's what will come up when I didn't want to feel something because it was too much for me. But when I didn't have those things anymore, because I wasn't using drugs, I wasn't using alcohol, I wasn't gambling, I wasn't watching porn, I had to then, the part just come up to the top, and that's where the anxiety came up for the first time because I wasn't using the firefighter to put it out anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship now with that anxiety part?
Oh, better. Because I understand that it's doing a job for me. It's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to, and it always has done, it's trying to protect that little boy going around in London, not feeling very safe where he was, wondering if he's going to get mugged or stabbed or something. So he wouldn't be there anymore. So, of course, that anxiety part was just keeping me safe all that time. But it just got in a bit of a chronic loop. And then I was always trying to escape the anxiety rather than connect with it and understand it was trying to talk to me. and help me out.
It's all about perspective, because I've struggled with anxiety a fair bit, to the point where like I'd make myself physically sick and shaking and not want to leave the room. But until I realized like this anxiety, it's not me. It's a part of me that's arising for a certain reason, and something that I believe it's something that I need to go towards. For example, like I used to get super anxious when it came to podcasts, because I don't know you. You're coming into my space. I've never met you before. Created all these scenarios of what could go wrong and everything like that. But it's like, nah, I'm actually excited for this. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but I'm excited. And anxiety it's not a bad thing. It's just the perspective and the relationship that you build with it.
Completely. I tried to bypass that a couple of years ago. I signed up to do a comedy, like learn how to do comedy and then do stand-up comedy. And tried to bypass my ability of public speaking. It's like, I don't like public speaking at all. So I thought I'll sign up and do a comedy gig. And it was the worst experience ever, because it was so intense. I had to really bypass all of that anxiety that was trying to keep me safe. And as soon as I got onto the stage, all the anxiety left, and I just did the routine, and it was fine. And I ended up doing 5 or 6 of them. So it was all right in the end. And I ended up having a better relationship with nerves rather than anxiety, like you say.
Talk to me about that firefighter that you mentioned before. And for you, when the firefighter came up, you went down a path of addiction. You said porn, drugs, alcohol. The thing with all those is it's socially accepted, right? So no one would have said anything. And a lot of men are going through their struggles and masking that with their addictions, but no one's saying anything because it is socially accepted. How do we work with that as a society?
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's a hard cookie to crack, because men get celebrated for sex addiction as well. They get celebrated for saying, I got with this woman, or I got with this, or I got with this partner, multiple people. They get celebrated for sex addiction, when even though it can be something really damaging and taken away from themselves, and they're not feeling comfortable about it. You get celebrated for how much alcohol you drink in the UK. Like the UK has the hugest alcohol society I've ever experienced. It's huge. Even in Australia, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one. I think for me personally, I had to take myself out of the situations. I had to stop being around those people that wanted to do that and socialize. And it became really lonely for a period of time, because I didn't have my close friends or my people around me that I grew up with that only wanted to do drugs and drink. But I was like, I can't, if I don't want to do that anymore, I can't be around it. I have to take myself out of it. Now I can go back into those situations and have a whole new relationship with it, and go out with my friends till 11 o'clock at night, which is late for me, 11 o'clock at night, and just drink a sparkling water and be okay with that. Because I started to become more comfortable with the social anxiety that I would feel, you know?
Yeah, that lonely period's interesting, where you leave your current groups because you want to be a different version of yourself, but you haven't quite reached that new kind of group of people. So you're in limbo. Just push through it. You have to go through that period to get to the next level, and then build a relationship where you can go back to your previous group if you choose to, and have a better relationship there. I think it's necessary that we all go through that lonely period. I think especially as men, we have to go through that.
And that's why it's so important also for men to have other men's groups. So important. We need it as men. We've got so disconnected from it. And that's why some of the men's work that's coming out more and more now is so important for us. It's huge. It's a big part of my life now. And I only started doing it this year. Had a men's group at the beginning of the year, run it every year in January. And it's huge. It's so beautiful. And I realize how important it is now for other men to do that, to have those connections. But for example, if you're talking about there in regards to having your friends and then losing your friends and then going back to them, some people just don't go back. They don't resonate anymore. It's like, this doesn't resonate with me anymore. These people don't. We just feel like we're on different levels. Not necessarily I'm above or you're below. We're just different. We're just in a different place now. Yeah,
definitely. And as I said, everyone's on their own journey, and you have to go through that. For you're a very spiritual man, and you weren't always a spiritual man. But I'm curious, with that spiritual side of you, are you also are you a man of faith? Do you believe in religion? Like, what's your views there? I'm very curious because I'm on a journey on myself of understanding why the hell are we on this earth, the higher power, all that kind of stuff. So I'm curious.
Yeah, good. I mean, good question. I don't necessarily have a belief around. I would say I believe in God. I believe in universe. I believe in all of the things. I believe that all religions have their own message and there are similarities in all of them. But I'd probably say I'm a little bit out there in regards to how I view what we're doing and stuff. Like, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that there's quantum realities and different times that are here in our reality, right, even here, right now. And yeah, I just don't know if it's necessarily just one form of a God. That's all. I think it's all of them and everything, more so than one particular thing.
Are you a flat earther?
I wouldn't say I'm a flat earther. No, I wouldn't say I'm a flat earther. I wouldn't even say that I'm not a flat earther or I'm a glober. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really have an idea.
No.
I think I think I'd believe that if I got shuttled out into space and started and looked down at the world, then maybe I'd have a different view on it. But I just don't know. I'm just open to everything. I don't know everything, but I'm curious about everything. Like, I'm not an expert on any of these things, and I'm sure lots of people will go, oh, well, well, if you don't know about it, don't talk about it. But I'd rather just be open and just go with what my intuition is telling me. Does that make sense?
It does.
That makes sense. And I'll just go down that route.
Hey, you mentioned a key word there, curiosity. We should all be curious. We should all ask questions because we don't know the truth until we start asking questions and finding it out for ourselves.
Especially after the last few years.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, after the last few years, I think we should all ask questions a little bit more, take a little bit more due diligence and go, does this feel right? Does that sound right? Does this mean something to me? Like, my partner is Christian and her family are heavily Christian. And I go to church with them and I take a lot from what I'm hearing. I've got friends that are Muslim and I take a lot from what they are sharing with me. I've got friends in so many different religions and I've been to Buddhism temples and all these different things. And I take something from all of them rather than sitting in one band or camp,
Yeah, I'm very much so on the same path of you of there's something to learn from every religion and culture and whatever out there, right? Not being closed-minded, being open-minded and accepting everyone has different views, but there's so many lessons that you can take from that to implement into your own life. And at the end of the day, you can believe whatever you want as long as you're being a good human being. For me, that's what matters the most.
What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be a good human being?
That's a good question. I feel like doing good deeds is a big part of that. Simple thing of asking how you're going. Simply caring for someone else. Caring about someone else's feelings and emotions and checking in with them. That's a big part of that. If someone's struggling, hey, how can I help you out? For me, that's a big part of being a good human being is just doing good deeds and giving back. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think I go down a whole... In the fields that I look into, it's hard for sometimes when I say this, but there's not necessarily a good and a bad. And it can be difficult because, well, of course there's bad people. There's evil in the world. But I come from a place of like, once you see that everyone has their own stuff going on, what makes that good and what makes that bad? So I guess I'm trying to just know my own values and try and live my life through those values, and hopefully that comes out the right way. But I would say yours sounds like compassion and having empathy and being kind. That sounds like what you're striving for and maybe some of your values that you live by. And I would say mine are some of the same, are very similar. It's like, how can I just take a moment just to listen to someone, chat to them, hear what they're saying without having any other motive from it? No,
I love that. And I had a beautiful conversation a couple of podcasts back, and he said, there's so many people in this world that are financially rich, but they're spiritually broke. Can we be rich in both areas?
Yeah. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. But I would say...
Are you rich in both areas, do you feel? 'Cause I'm not saying financially as in you don't have to have millions of dollars, but your definition of financially rich and then spiritually rich. Do you feel like you are?
Yes. Yes, I do. I would say I'm extremely grateful for everything that's come to me. And there would have been a time in my life where I had none of that. And I didn't even think I was going to be alive. So I'm extremely grateful for everything that I've got. I'm extremely grateful for the path that I'm on, for the service that I can be of, and for I think it's a duty now that I have in some respect or another to be able to sit with people through their stuff. And I'm so inquisitive and curious. Like, I'm going down to Melbourne next week to do a training course in spinal energetics, not because I'm going to become a spinal energetics practitioner, but because I'm interested in just learning more and understanding more of what this means to be this human experience.
Yeah. There's so many elements to it.
Yeah.
And we just got to figure it out as we go on this thing we call a journey, right?
Yeah. Figuring it out as we go along.
That's it. And Ryan, this has been a beautiful conversation. As I said, it went in a lot of different ways.
It did.
And I feel like it's happened the way that it's meant to happen. And I thank you for that. We have a closing tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest.
Beautiful.
Now, the question for you is, in what way has your faith, now this faith could be in whatever you pull strength from or have belief in, has influenced your approach to overcoming challenges in both your personal and professional life?
That I'm always supported. I'm never alone. And it's all working out exactly as it's meant to. Every single thing that you thought was not meant to happen to you or uncomfortable for you worked out exactly how it was meant to. Even the uncomfortable, horrible stuff, it really, really did work out for you in the long run. It gave me all of the wounds that I had to heal in order to teach others to do that. So I would say that.
Ryan, I'm grateful for you, man. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot and you've opened my eyes up to a lot of different things today. So thank you so much for making this happen and being here today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Man, thank you.
Cheers, dude.